In Bryce Young's return as a starting quarterback, things look much like they did week 1 and week 2. But at the end, things look different and makes me a little confused moving forward as the Panthers figure out what to do now sitting here at 1-7.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show here on YouTube and wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Wednesdays throughout the entirety of the regular season, I'm right here on the show answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All you got to do is either at me or DM me on Twitter at Julian Council right now up until about 4 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon to get your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions and be part of the show here on Locked On Panthers. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. The Denver Broncos 28, the Carolina Panthers 14, as the Panthers fall to 1-7 here on the 2024 NFL regular season. And this is a game that, of course, was about Bryce Young. And going into it, my hope was that Dave Canales could set Bryce Young up to succeed by getting him comfortable early on in this game. But really, it was the defense that set up Bryce Young to have success. Shai Tuttle makes the best play he's made as a Carolina Panther in his 1+ seasons here so far by punching out the ball from Lil Jordan Humphrey. The Panthers got the ball at the 49-yard line, and they were in business on the road against Denver. And for the first time all season long, the Panthers offense cashed in a defensive takeaway into 6 points as Bryce Young found Xavier Legette over the middle on a 3rd down and 7 from the goal line. Outstanding throw, outstanding catch. A driver, Carolina really dinked and dunked, getting it out to Miles Sanders, running the ball with Chuba Hubbard, running some screen plays as well. Some smart plays to get your quarterback comfortable to eventually build towards maybe taking some downfield shots later on in the game. Bryce was 5 for 5 on that drive, 39 yards, had a touchdown. There's another play that was actually brought back because of a holding call where Bryce got out of a sack, was able to not get the completion. He had, I think, Tommy Trimble open underneath. Didn't see him there. Tried to get to Jalen Coker. But positives that you saw from Carolina offensively, mainly from Bryce Young on that opening drive. Then the next drive, Denver goes 3 and out. A'Shawn Robinson ends it with a nice coverage sack, and you're feeling good. For the second time all season long, Carolina got down the field and scored on an opening drive. And also for the second time this season, they held their opponent to 0 points in the first quarter. The last time it happened was week 3 in that just euphoric win on the road against Las Vegas when Andy Dalton took over at quarterback. But then, well, as we know, nothing good here lasts too long as the Broncos scored a touchdown on their next 3 drives, and the Panthers offense began to stall. 4 first downs on the opening drive, won the rest of the half offensively as the play calling in the game strategy looked pretty similar from what we saw on the opening scripted drive. The problem was you're now down by a touchdown and down by 2 touchdowns and eventually down by 3 touchdowns, and nothing really changed, which just brings me back to Bryce Young and the fact that I just do not think Dave Canales has a lot of belief in Bryce as his quarterback and a guy who believes can operate his offense. Last Monday, when he was asked by Steve Reed, the Associated Press, whether it made sense to Carolina Panthers at 1-6, clearly not going to be a playoff team, and to go back to Bryce Young just to make sure that he is not their guy. And Dave said it's about Andy Dalton, it's about the team, it's about all that. That's where his focus lies. He was not focused at all on going back to Bryce Young in that situation, even though he was pressed on it multiple times in that Monday press conference after watching the film and watching his offense, led by Andy Dalton, have yet another bad offensive performance for the second week in 3 weeks. They were bad in Chicago. They weren't really that great against Atlanta. Andy threw 2 brutal picks, really one of them when they were down 20-20 cost him that game, a game where the defense was terrible, but the defense lost all the wind it had after that pick. And then you look at Washington, they come out, they're moving the ball down the field, brutal pick six by Andy Dalton, game's over right then and there. They can't move it all day long. And of course, the defense gets embarrassed, but operationally, it wasn't like the offense had looked that great the last couple weeks of Andy. So why not give the guy who the Panthers gave up all these picks and players for and brought you in to work with, why not give him another opportunity? But Dave said, no, I'm focused on Andy. I'm focused on the team and the guys we have in there, not focused on Bryce Young. Never once saying Bryce Young's name when asked about Bryce on Monday. But then on Tuesday, Andy Dalton picks up his kids from school, get in a car accident, hurts his right thumb. We find out about that on Tuesday, wondered whether he would be out. Find out on Wednesday, then indeed it is a right thumb injury and that Bryce Young would start. And Dave Canales sat there and said, I'm excited to see Bryce Young get to play football. But was he really? Because on Monday, given multiple opportunities to say nice things about Bryce Young and say that, yeah, maybe we'll go back, never did it. And on Wednesday, when asked about Bryce Young in that situation about what has he done the last couple of weeks to really improve, didn't want to get into scheme. So that's a guy going to the game I felt like had no confidence. And because of that, we were likely going to see a lot of short throws, a lot of underneath stuff, and not an offense that looks anything resembling an NFL offense because the coach, who's also the play caller, had no confidence in his quarterback. And it's hard to sit here and not feel that way after this game where it wasn't like Bryce Young was great. And the numbers at the end of it are a lot better than they were right before the final couple of drives. 24 of 37, 224 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a 76.9 rating. Operationally, yes, the Panthers have looked better on offense with Andy Dalton in most of the games in half the games that he's played. The games that Bryce Young has played, they looked terrible week 1, looked terrible week 2, didn't really look great today until all of a sudden at the end of the game, they open up things. And Bryce Young completes passes of 11, 12, 13, 23, 15, 26 yards. And you're sitting there wondering, where was this all day? Why didn't they try to stretch the field more? We didn't see a deep pass until they were down 21-7. It was a first down. It's in the third quarter. Bryce Young throws to the Xavier Legette, just misses him. When we have seen Bryce Young overthrow receivers a lot in his time here in Carolina. And later on in that drive, they decide they're going to go for it on their own 24 by faking a field goal, which did not work out, faking a punt, rather, which did not work out. And that led directly to 7 points for Denver and all but salted away the game in that scenario. Later on, we did see Bryce Young hit Jalen Coker on a third down on the sideline, one of the best throws we've seen all season long by a Panthers quarterback. A great reception, too, as Jalen Coker really has earned his job as one of the starting receivers in Carolina. But we didn't really see much of that until the final couple of drives. And yeah, Bryce threw an interception with Tommy Trimble trying to get it to him in the red zone, and a scenario there where Justin McCourty was on the broadcast talking about he hasn't really been out there with the first team a lot. And Ian Rappaport did report on Sunday morning there's an opportunity that Bryce Young, depending on how he played, could stay in that role, even though the only reason he was out there in that role is because the head coach, couldn't play the guy he wanted to play because Andy Dalton got in a car accident. Andy didn't get in a car wreck. Bryce doesn't play today unless there's mop-up duty, which is the only reason he's been out there, to protect Andy, not to develop, but to protect the quarterback who Dave Canales believes can actually run his offense the way that he wants. And you just look at the play calling, you look at the way things go with Andy, and some of the throws that are put out there, at least the plays down the field, and you look at when Bryce is out there, and it just does not lead you to believe that the play caller, that being Dave Canales, believes in his quarterback. And we don't know what the plays are being called. I just know what it looks like when Andy's out there, when it looks like when Bryce is out there. And yes, offensively, they've looked better of Andy. I just wonder, man, is Bryce really even getting an opportunity to try and show whatever he's capable of doing here in the NFL? I don't know. The 2 delay game penalties on the same drive, that's comical stuff. That cannot happen. I'm just sitting here and I am just more confused based off of how he played at the end of it and wondering, where do they go from here? Does it make sense to stick with Bryce? Does it make sense to go back to Andy? This team is 1-7. It's not like by going back to Andy Dalton, they're going to save their season, turn it around. I know a couple years ago, the Lions were 1-7. They turned it around. They were just there in week 17, having a chance to go to the playoffs, and were not able to get the help that they needed, but they turned around and look at what they're at now, building off of that season. But still, it's hard. It's hard to know. It feels like probably the best thing for Carolina is just to stick with Bryce. 1-7. Andy's not going to be here next year. in all likelihood, Bryce is probably not going to be here next year, especially if Canales is not a believer in him. Would make way more sense for Carolina to give him the next 9 games to truly make sure. And at this point in time, who in that locker room are you offending? Deontay Johnson should be traded this week. Was the rib injury because he's actually hurt, or is it because the Panthers want to save him to try and trade him away this week to a team that needs a receiver? Same thing with Adam Thielen. He's had a hamstring. He didn't come back this week. Was that more the hamstring trying to get him back, or was it more you want to preserve him so you can trade him and get what you can get before the deadline? You got young receivers like Get and Coker who deserve those snaps anyways at this point in time. So why not just go young with the youth movement? Jonathan Brooks is coming back soon. Get him his carries. We can still have Chuba Hubbard out there. We'd like to see Jatavion Sanders get an opportunity. I just look at this point in time. They're 1-7. They're not going anywhere this year as far as the playoffs. Some of the older guys who may have been upset earlier in the year with the way Bryce Young played shouldn't be here this time next week after the Saints game. Just go ahead and just stick with Bryce. Like, what do you have to lose? More games? I guess your job, possibly, if David Tepper's willing to do that. Like, that's the only situation I can look at where it wouldn't make sense. But when asked about it after the game, Dave Canales said they're going to have to look at the film, look at all the situation medically with Andy Dalton, then make a decision after that. There's nothing to be gained. Nothing to be gained by keeping Andy Dalton out there. And you could say there's nothing to be gained by keeping Bryce Young out there because Bryce Young is not the right guy. And I still feel like at the end of the day, it's going to end up with Bryce not being the quarterback in Carolina, that he's still going to be done because the guy who they have as the head coach doesn't really see him as a dude. And there's been 19 games Bryce Young starting in the NFL, and he has not played well. They only won 2 times. Now QB wins, not a quarterback, is not a QB stat, obviously, but still, it's not been great. And there haven't been nearly enough moments in these 19 starts to make you feel like, yeah, he's going to figure out he's going to be the guy here in Carolina. So I think I'm just team stick with Bryce. Maybe it works. And that makes a hell of a lot more sense than going to a guy who's going to be 37 in 2 days' time and is a free agent after this year and isn't going to be a high-level starting quarterback for anybody in this day and age in the NFL. So, yeah, probably should go back to Bryce, but we'll see what they decide to do. But I can't get over just thinking about Canales and how things have gone for his offenses this year and wondering, did he do right by Bryce? Is this really on him? I don't really know, but we'll talk more about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's what to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. In fact, 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. It's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. You can now win up 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and here in North Carolina. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions to real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. So the Carolina Panthers threw out Bryce Young there on Sunday in their 28-14 loss against the Denver Broncos. A coach and Dave Canales, who I said on Friday, did not believe he had faith in the quarterback based off of all the things he had to say, but not say about Bryce Young throughout the week leading up to the Panthers game in Denver. And we saw with the play calling that didn't really feel like he had a ton of belief in his quarterback. And I felt like this was a big spot for Dave. Understood. Adam Thielen, Deontay Johnson weren't playing. So the offense, what you're going to get out of it, probably was not going to be high-level stuff. But still, you can find a way in the NFL to win even when you don't have everything at your full disposal talent-wise. And we looked at this earlier this season. Malik Willis, remember him? Went to Liberty. We talked about potentially him being Carolina as the quarterback of the future. He went to Tennessee, and he was god-awful in Tennessee and did not look like a guy that was playable. So bad that the Titans decided Will Levis, who also is terrible, was someone that they would rather have as their starter this year than Malik Willis, and moved on. He went to Green Bay, and he teamed up with Matt LaFleur, one of the best play callers in the NFL. And when Jordan Love got hurt in Sao Paulo on an opening Friday night, I thought the Packers, I think a lot of people looked at the Packers and thought, like, this team, they're screwed until Jordan Love gets back, because we had seen Malik Willis. We saw even in that game, Hail Mary, Malik Willis couldn't even get a pass off. Just things that are mind-numbing he was doing on the field at the quarterback position. But Matt LaFleur, what did he do? He went to the drawing board. He talked to Malik, talked to his offense coaches, the rest of his team, and put together a game plan to accentuate what Malik Willis is best at, which is running the football. And also using his arm and some deep balls, and they found a way to not win once, but twice. 2 games about Jordan Love, they had Malik Willis in there, and they were able to play off of his strengths. I watched this game today, and I was wondering, could Dave Canales play off of the strengths of Bryce Young? And you can sit here, and you can be conniving, condescending, and say that, no, he has no strengths at all. You did see Malik Willis play, who maybe is bad, worse than Bryce Young when Bryce got opportunities earlier this season and last year. So if Malik Willis can go out there and have success, Bryce Young, who we have actually seen have good moments, he could potentially have success if the play caller was willing to put together a game plan, or let's say not willing, but capable of putting together a game plan that could win a game in the NFL. And what we saw was the same inept offense we saw week 1 when Bryce looked terrible, week 2 when Bryce looked terrible, but also in Chicago with Andy Dalton, and last week in Washington. So I have some real questions just about Dave Canales as the play caller here in Carolina through the first 8 games of the season. I heard all about running and being stubborn about it. They have not necessarily been. And today they face off against a really good Broncos defense, and that should obviously be stated when looking at Bryce's performance and the overall performance of the offense, sans Adam Thielen, sans, yes, Andy Dalton, and sans Deontay Johnson. Understood. Still, come on, man. They were bad against New Orleans. They were bad against the Chargers with Bryce. They were bad against the Bears with Andy, bad against the Commanders with Andy, and they were not very good today against the Broncos until garbage time. Is it more Vance Joseph backing off with still having the starters in there, or is it, bleep it, it's not like we can lose the game anymore because the game's already over. Let's just let them throw it and see what happens. They were excellent against the Raiders that first game, and the Raiders aren't good. They were good against the Bengals, fine against Atlanta, but not good enough offensively. Not all of these stinkers have been on Bryce, but every single one of these stinkers they've had this season have been with Dave calling the plays and Dave being scared for his quarterback to make mistakes. And yes, Bryce made mistakes. The throw to Trimble, I think Trimble was expecting him to throw it to the inside and went to the outside. Maybe Bryce expecting Trimble to break to the outside. Instead, it was to the inside. Miscommunication, typically in those situations, that's on the receiver. But this is a receiver and quarterback who have not necessarily been working together first team, because Bryce has been with the scout team, getting select reps with the first team, and Tommy Trimble has been on the shelf, has not really been practicing. So how can you expect them to get things right in the game when they're not practicing together, whether it's due to one guy being a backup and the other just not being out on the field at all because he's been injured for the majority of this season? And then you have the other one, Jalen Coker, which I thought was an underthrown ball, yes, but also a good play by the Broncos DB to get that interception. Both bad turnovers to happen in the red zone, but also, you know what? It is what it is. He's got to take care of the ball, and that's going to be, I'm sure, a reason why Canales does not want to go back to him. But it's not just his offense. Like some of the decision-making that I saw today, the turnover on downs after Sean Payton really did get it wrong, and Canales went for it, which was smart. If the coach on the other side is going to ask for 4th and 2 when it's close enough to midfield to be in that go-for-it territory instead of asking for 3rd and 12, you go for it every single time. Now, an option play to the boundary didn't make a ton of sense to me. Like, why not run it if you're going to run that to the field side? The boundary is the short side of the field, closer to the sideline, where the field is the bigger side of the field, not as close to the sideline. Why not have more space to operate in that situation. And I know I saw Joe Person tweet out that it looked like if Bryce handed it off to Chuba Hubbard, maybe they get it. We don't know whether that was the option in that situation, if he made the wrong read or not. Either way, didn't work out for Carolina in that situation. Then the fake punt was just asinine, y'all. The game is 21-7. There is plenty of time left in it. And let me just go back to the play-by-play while I'm sitting here talking to y'all about this, because that right there, that wrapped up the game, because Denver had to go 24 yards. They had the ball to Carolina 23. They still had 8:34 left in the third quarter. They're down 2 scores. You're still in the game. Offensively, I get it. That wasn't great. It was 3 and out to start off the half, 3 and out again. They had 4 first downs in the opening drive. They had 1 first down up until that point when they tried to go for it, where Johnny Hekker had Sam Franklin Jr. open, just missed him. Because, he's your punter. He may be a good thrower as a punter, but he still missed that throw. But why? Why in that situation? And I know you want to get a spark, the desperation and all of that. You want to get things going. Why not then try to – because they threw it down the field on that first down. You showed your aggressiveness. Why not just stay on the field and throw it with your quarterback instead? That's something that it did not make any sense to me at all to do that. Then Denver, short field, they punch it in because your defense is one of the worst red zone defenses in the NFL. Like, you really going to put your defense in that situation, as banged up as they've been, as bad as they've been so far, and they had been in that game. You're going to put in that situation, and I guess you could argue, well, they've been bad. Why not try and keep them off the field and get your offense to find that jolt? I didn't like that. Didn't love the call on that 4th down. Didn't love the call faking the punt. And then you look at just the play calling and what Bryce is asked to do compared to what Andy Dalton's asked to do. And I just have questions. I got real questions about a guy who no one else in the NFL wanted to interview at all, and now has this job in Carolina, only 1 year as a play caller. Seems like a nice dude, but a lot of it comes across as disingenuous when you have all this pep, all this excitement, and then when you're asked to just give any firm statements on anything, you skate by it. Whenever asked about Bryce Young, and you always say, I got to go back and watch the film. And then when you watch the film, you're willing to still not answer any of the questions. Where last week, Deontay Johnson clearly broke off his route. They asked about it. What happened there? He said, I got to go back and watch the film. Monday, after watching the film, asked once again about that play. And he said, Andy and Deontay had a conversation about it. And then still was asked, hey, so who was that on? Didn't want to talk about personal conversations, when we all clearly saw who broke it up. But the coach not willing to answer those questions. So that's just one of the things about the whole operation from Canales right now that's just got me just raising an eyebrow. Try not to be too critical. This is not going to be a good roster. This was not going to be a playoff team. But at some point in time, man, your offense can't be this inept almost every single week. And you can't keep getting blown out and then having teams just show just no respect for you at all, like Sean Payton did on Sunday with the fake field goal, the double pass, just some Bush League stuff where you got to stop it. Yes. And J.C. Horn had some words for Sean Payton. It's not a lot of Panthers had some words after they were able to knock that ball out at the goal line when Cortland Sutton had an opportunity to score. Just that teams don't respect you, and you seem to be handcuffing your team's ability to win when Bryce Young's out there playing, just based off of what we saw called for the majority of the game than what we saw at the end of it. When, yes, it was garbage time, maybe making too much out of it. I don't know. But team can't keep getting blown out every week and looking this bad on the side of the ball where he's supposed to be, the expert, even when Andy's playing and when Bryce is playing. So that's just some questions about Canales, and we'll see how it goes moving forward. I fully expect if Andy Dalton's ready to go next week, he'll be the starter, even though it really doesn't make any sense for the organization to keep doing that during a 1-7 season. But we'll see what decision Dave decides to make, and we'll see whether he's willing to even stand by that decision and answer why he's making that decision, other than he gives us the best opportunity to win games. Although we've seen, maybe, but you're still not winning games. Look at your 1-7 record. The defense is bad again this week. Not really surprised. We'll talk about them and kind of, again, where the Panthers go from here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. Football season is back, and the best way to get to games this fall is with Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. You can see exactly where you're going to sit. One of my favorite features over in the Game Time app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Carolina Panthers now sitting at 1-7 as they will host New Orleans Saints, who are also reeling 6 straight losses, right? They lost to the Chargers, I'm pretty sure, for the Saints after they got off to a hot start, beating up on what we have seen are 2 pretty bad defenses in the Carolina Panthers and in the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, they lost, as I did see that Spencer Rattler got benched. We'll see if Derek Carr is ready to go. Either way, that's a team that looks like they're headed to a coaching change after the season. There's questions about their long-term quarterback situation. Now, Derek Carr's contract does still have a no-trade clause, so it'll be difficult for New Orleans to get anything from him if they wanted to trade. But that will be a matchup that will be very sad for any NFL sicko to watch next week, as Panthers will have an opportunity to win this game, especially if Andy Dalton plays, because the coach will actually try and call some plays to try and win. And if Bryce plays, well, going to be a lot of screens, going to be a lot of short throws on 3rd and 14, and a lot like what we saw for the majority of this game. So get pumped for that. The defense did get healthier as A'Shawn Robinson returned from a knee injury. Jadeveon Clowney, who missed the last 2 weeks, he was out there. Josie Jewell also. I thought Josie actually played a good game in his return to Denver. They did place Nick Scott on IR on Saturday with a hamstring injury. Again, all of these hamstring injuries, it's just how is it that this team has had so many of them? They had 21 guys on the final injury report at the end of the week. Like, it's just insane. Russ Yeast was activated, or was actually signed from the practice squad to the active roster. He was cut a couple weeks ago. Sam Franklin Jr. was activated IR. Good to see him back. Now, the unfortunate thing is you get a special teams ace, one of your captains back in this game, and then Felipe Franks went out with concussion on one of the punt coverage plays. He's been pretty good for them, so they're going to figure out, at least for probably this upcoming week, how to replace Felipe Franks there. They do get Sam Franklin Jr. back. That is a good thing. Damani Richardson got to start at safety, a guy who really impressed as an undrafted free agent, rookie at A&M, who's having a great season college football-wise. He was awesome during training camp, made the team, and now is in that position where you look at the future, and they didn't have Jamie Robinson. He was out with a knee injury today. The Panthers got to figure out after this year what they're going to do at safety, as Nick Scott, who really is not that good anyways, he's out as far as he's going to be a free agent. Jordan Fuller, he's going to be a free agent after this season, and maybe they'll get him back next week. That would be great. But in this situation, kind of should just stick with Damani Richardson, though, as he's a young guy who can be here for sure next year. He's going to be cheap. And then Xavier Woods as well. He's going to be a free agent. They got to find out who's going to have back there at safety. So a big opportunity for Richardson to stay there for the rest of the year, possibly. They gave up 21 first-half points to the Broncos. That was the most the Broncos had scored in a half all season long, and those all came in the second quarter, which is also the most they've scored in a single quarter all season. And you probably saw it on social media, and we're reminded about it throughout the broadcast on all the NFL games, but it was National Tight End Day. The Broncos entered today with the lowest tight end production in the NFL, which is kind of shocking because Carolina typically doesn't have great production when it comes to tight ends, and they were all over the field in the first half and throughout this game. Adam Troutman, y'all, had 2 receptions for 32 yards entering this game, and he had 4 receptions for 85 yards in the first half. Nate Atkins scored a touchdown in the first half. Lucas Krull had a couple of catches as well. That just points to the Panthers' issues. And there was one drive where you got Mike Jackson chasing behind Cortland Sutton. You got J.C. Horn falling out of his break. That's a touchdown, or a wide up side touchdown. It was a wide open throw to Adam Troutman. You had Troutman had that one-handed catch over Trevin Wallace. There were just holes throughout this secondary throughout the day in the pass game, and it was brutal because Bo Nix, the guy has not been that great so far this season. He's a rookie. He's still learning. He's getting it figured out. He went out there, and he looked awesome for the most part. 28-37, 284 yards, 3 touchdowns. And the majority of that production was done in the first half, where he had 220 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then another one, I believe it was the rushing touchdown, where he just went up and over, and they made him look awesome. So Marcus Mariota's a guy last week. It was Bo Nix this week, and is it going to be Jake Haener next week for New Orleans? I hope that's not going to be the case. The injuries, the lack of talent, it's not a good enough excuse, of course, but that's just the reality And the context of the situation, I know folks want to see Ejiro Evero gone. It's not going to fix anything as long as they keep having hamstring injuries and their best two players are out for the rest of the season in Shaq Thompson and Derek Brown. I guess arguably you can say JC Horn is one of their best players as well. Whatever. You're not going to be a good defense. Only gave it 28, so that's an improvement. And they got 2 takeaways. That's the funny thing about it. They were able to get 2 takeaways in this game, even though they still weren't great. So, and they didn't get any help from the offense, as is standard here in Carolina in 2024. So we'll see what they're able to do. Hopefully get healthier, get a guy like Jaden Crumedy out there, DJ Wonnum, who we did finally find out this week why he's been out. This is actually with the blood clot. I had a conversation with somebody back in training camp, and I relayed this to you guys as best as I could because I'm not going to tell you what happened because I can't give up that information. But I had a conversation with someone back in August at camp, and they had told me that it was a blood clot, and that's why he was having issues. And even before that, I was told it was a setback back in the spring. Didn't know what the setback was. I informed y'all here on the show about that. That was what it was, and he talked about it. Something I'm certainly sensitive to. My mom had a blood clot and had to be in the hospital. I mean, it's been over 15 years at this point in time. So good for him to have his health, and there really should be no rush to get him back out there on the field. They have the 21-day window. Of course, you would probably want to get him. You would like for him to play this year, but in the off season, is it necessary? I don't know. But good for DJ Wonnum to be able to go back and practice, get over that, because that's scary, man. Scary stuff. That serious. Get that from your leg all the way up to your lungs. Next stop is the heart, and plenty of people have passed, unfortunately, due to that. So thank God that was not the case for him. And hopefully we can see him out there in black and blue here shortly as he gets back out there with the Panthers. And we see what the rest of the season holds. But right now, the team's 1-7. They got a bad team coming to town next week. So possibly could get a win, get to 2-7 before heading over to Munich to face off against Brian Burns and the Giants. But the quarterback conversation, that will be, I'm sure, the one we'll have once again later on this week, as Dave Canales, I'm sure, will skate by all those questions when asked about it on Monday and then asked about it on Wednesday until having to truly let us know what that was going to happen on Friday afternoon ahead of that game against New Orleans. But that's going to wrap up this edition of Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all, subscribe, follow the show free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. If you have not already, be sure to hit me up on Twitter at Julian Council, where on Wednesday I'll be back answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. Again, at me, DM me over on Twitter at Julian Council to get those questions in right now. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole as always, and forever keep pounding. And I'll talk to y'all on Tuesday.